Okay, today I admit, I love using Tibor.
Gosh, I love
using him, but for now I think that having him is just overkill because Imperial Golem is much more cheaper, which opens up more provisions for better cards. Using this setup might make you vulnerable to milling due to its dependency of pinning. There are ways to counter milling, but the old methods don't work anymore. You can't avoid it by mulliganing marching orders and royal decree because the risk of Sarthegius pulling those cards is still high. So the only solution for now is just to go all out in round 1 and 2.
We follow Letho's lead.
This is why those Vipers need Courier to eliminate the right cards, and which is also why milling doesn't win all the time. Banishing the wrong cards like bronzes that can be considered fodder will just help your opponent get better draws later.
No passage.
Should have used Ardal Vigo though. My bad.
Slick on my ship.
Fang should have been a good card, it's just too bad that there isn't enough support for him. Devil's Puffball is just not enough, and Rot Tosser is so unreliable. I tried using the setup wherein Spies and Assimilate work together, but it was never meant to be. Sure, it can still win when the opponent isn't prepared for it, but the loses just outweighs it all. Hyperthinning is just so messy. With this deck you have to look out for Imperial Golem, Nilfgaardian Knight, Nausicaa Sergeant, and Emhyr Brigade. Ideally all those cards should be in the deck, but when they're all in your hand, it just breaks the setup too much. In a tight situation like this you can just sacrifice Emhyr Brigade without using Decoy, and hope that the Sergeants don't ruin the second round. Well, someone's angry, lol.
What is truth, if not an illusion?
If you are confident enough that a one-powered sergeant would survive this ordeal, then go for it. But if the situation is rough wherein the opponent has damage engines, then you might as well spawn a brigade just to trigger the other sergeant's boost.
Time to get our hands dirty.
You've helped me, but that entitles you to nothing. Don't get any grand ideas.
I was a douche for thinking that using Sarthegius in this turn would have maximized his boost, but I was lucky for not doing so because later you'll see why Emhyr was confident enough to bring those poisonous fangs.
Fine. You're not completely incompetent.
Bow, barbarian. Bow low.
I never err in my predictions.
Bring
game can be hazardous to your health.
I'll defend Kessa to my dying breath.
This was why he had those fangs. It's brilliant and I would like to make a more viable version of the deck, but that's for another video.
All these signs mean one thing.
Now it's already obvious that Ardal can do things better compared to Usurper, but if your setup relies too much on your leader's ability, then that will definitely lose to Usurper, which I'm guessing that's the reason why Usurper gets a lot of hate. Since my Ardal uses a setup that doesn't really rely on seizing anything, then when it faces Usurper it would definitely be an easy match.
You will not regret this, sir.
Just great.
Triss is always so good to use with an assimilate setup. It's just a shame that Nilfgaard doesn't have an extra ability just like Imperial Diviner. It's tempting to use Diviner when locks and bounty become rampant, but if there are no signs of it as you grind, then having Nilfgaardian Knight is just more useful to have.
An interesting choice.
Yeah, Nilfgaard is a prick. Lol, everyone's a prick. See, this is how assimilate, spy and poison could have worked. The main problem was that there was too much setup, and spies give points to the opponent, so using Rock Tosser would have been great, but when the experiment was still ongoing the majority of my opponents suddenly used Breamed and Slave Infantry in their decks. So giving a spy was practically giving 4 points to the opponent already. Other factions have their own way of countering the spies by consuming them or outright damage them for boost, so it wasn't going to be viable, hence that deck was scrapped.
I always find a way in.
Frost, perhaps.
Yeah, if you have Zarthesius, as much as possible don't eat him, knowing the risk. I got too greedy here. I should have used Nilfgaard just to provoke him.
If not by strength, then by stealth.
I swear, every time I use NG decks, Mulligans are always killing me.
No, Sakaya! Charge! Unfounded order!
Order!
Saying that to me! Hail Katza!
Next leader is Emhyr. Now for some reason having Stefanskallen in the deck is actually better compared to Commander's Horn, and by better I mean in terms of draws. This got me speculating that the RNG between units and non-units might be different. Although, Skallen is just a shield against Iwaraquux, he can still be very powerful and useful even if the duplicated tactic card was just a bronze.
No, Sakaya! Charge!
Give me a time.
Come on, stalkers! We ride!
Oh, Lady Margarita told us of this.
Nothing will stop us.
The senses can be fooled easily.
Decent. That is what you folk lack.
I shan't fail. I cannot fail.
You can try to win them all, but you won't.
Every rid's a thief.
When you sense your opponent going all out in the situation, it might be for the best to just give up on round 2. You can't risk having a card disadvantage no matter what your combo is. Even if you are using Dijkstra. In the wise words of Tibor.
Give no quarter!
Now let's address why the setup works so well unlike before despite of the existence of tall removals and milling, yet it can even go toe-to-toe against Foltest and Dijkstra. This deck setup due to having 13 to 14 units is practically close to what a unitless setup is as of right now. You can spam special cards if the opponent spams units. Even if in the long game you still have 0 points in the board, you can catch up quickly due to the big boosters like Zarthesius and the tall card summoner which is Bodeferts. Even though Yennefer is not part in my version of the setup, the reason for that is because she can be unreliable. With or without her the effect would be the same, a barrage of tall units are spammed in the process. This effect is actually similar to before Juragura was nerfed.
Nice mess you've
Despite
got
the
here.
opponent having tall removals, it was meaningless due to the number of tall cards and they just can't keep up. Next is even though the deck looks like it's short on units due to the thinners, surprisingly the existence of Imperial diplomacy was actually very important. All in all this was only possible due to the decrease of provisions in most cards. I don't know what CDPR is planning but if their goal is to slowly undo some of the nerfs, I'm happy that they're doing it. Gwent in the beta phase was more dynamic even compared to what the current state of the game is right now. I miss it and hopefully they can still manage to balance things out for all factions to get some action.
What's this called?
Lummoxes.
Come forth, coward, and your own doom confront!
Notice! All roads lead to Nilfgaard!
We met. I don't recall.
This is why artifacts and row effects like weather cards need to be cheaper as well, so that carrying cards like Iris would actually make sense. Although, if that's not going to happen then replacing her artifact removing ability for something else would actually help. Just like False Siri who can support the pikemen or disrupt row dependent units if there were no artifacts to destroy.
Quite the menial task.
Order will triumph! It must triumph! Now!
An interesting choice.
Calviet is actually a very solid card to use in the setup, compared to the other cards, since he can do hyper-thinning unlike Ardal and Usurper. It has its own risk and you will most likely lose in the third round if you're not careful, but going all out in round 1 and 2 will never be an issue for him.
Can he come cleanly when you squirming about like that? Should have taken the easy road.
The bonded ability of those bloody thugs are actually just too much. I can counter them by just removing them out of the field, but with Igor's existence, you can't do anything once the setup is done, and it's the same for townsfolk as well. Still, nerfing them might not be the solution. Adding cards to counter them might be the only way going forward.
You mistake stars reflected in a pond for lights.
Sorry, can't help it. A card that can do a 21-point swing dead. Yeah, I'm sorry for not laughing even harder.
easy job.
Yeah, I can sense the anger in this one as well. Justified though. When you actually have the high ground, go all out and never surrender.
The senses can be fooled easily.
Go on, Encader! Praise be to the great sun!
There will be rain or frost.
I should not have passed right there. Maybe if I was 1 point less, he could have beaten me in the next round. Anna, in terms of barraging units, can actually do the same pressure as Calviet did. She's also safer to use compared to hyper-thinning, but the risk of not getting good cards from the opponent's hand still makes her ability very weak. Although if she can just pull an extra unit, Commander's Horn will be maximized.
The Empire will be victorious. What is truth if not an illusion?
That's what you folk lack.
Side effects might include discoloration of the epidermis. Ah, longships are overrated.
Fancy a game of Calviet roulette?
An austere life is a virtuous life.
Sometimes luring out Philippa in the first 2 rounds can be really good. If SY can't do big swings in the round 3, then winning will still be possible. The worst case scenario would be for my opponent to carry Renew as well, but that's where Swayers becomes important. Although, if there's no Philippa on side, you can go all out if you want to, especially when Hefty was set successfully.
Do it, slaves!
Why bother with the door once you're done?
An interesting choice.
Now that I think about it, wiping the board would have still been possible.
Every last copper.
In this world, only 2 things are certain.
Abandon your false guns!
One man's battlefield is another man's ripe patch for harvest.
I miss the time when locking a unit really mattered, but removing them from the field is just simpler and cleaner. It makes playing the game stress-free to some extent. Although, ironically, we play games because it's supposed to alleviate stress rather than cause it.
Cannot shut them out of learning.
Another month's coin gone in an instant.
Order will triumph! It must triumph! My lads will make sure of that.
Zeracanians.
Praise be to the great sun!
You base your contention
construction on erroneous assumptions.
What did you think, dearest? It matches all our
Last but not the least, then again his setup is really different and close to meta. Morvran's ability relies on soldiers, so he cannot enjoy the freedom of using Golem to save provisions. Tibor is a soldier, thankfully. It's already hard enough that the knights have a separate category, and there's just a limited number of soldiers in this deck that it might be possible to not have a receiver of the boost that he gives. Just like Calviet, you have to go all out in the first 2 rounds.
What is truth, if not an
The condition for his has wherein the soldier is put on top of the deck will only help kill G-Forts but not Artegius and Yennefer. Keep that in mind and try not to yeet so much.
Deliver us from evil!
Easy to forget about the irons in my arms.
I honestly don't know what you think this is, Vagrant.
Like to see what's beyond me back.
Map's upside down again.
The best kept on a short lead. Hey, what's that up your sleeve?
You crossed the wrong sorceress!
Lol. And besides, even if it was just a 4 boost, it's still 1 point better than that 3 boost that Artegius did earlier. Next time, I'll really watch out for that one.
State stars reflected in a pond. Nice.
If you want to use these decks, check the description below. Thanks for watching.